What's up guys, this is Qazi. The most exciting part about this video is that you're going to experience the full power of color grading. I'm going to be creating these two looks from the Jungle Book by using the same exact shot. And guys, I've noticed some of you mentioned in my Joker and Mad Max look that why is it taking so long? If it takes 40 minutes to grade one shot, then how long does it take to grade a feature film? And to answer that question, I'm going to tell you that what I'm doing here is something called creating a look DNA. We're creating a color palette for the entire project. So if you just look at this example from Mad Max, it took them 6 to 8 months to develop that particular look for the film. So that gives you an idea, puts everything into perspective. Now, before we jump in, let's check out how they approach color grading for this particular movie. Color grading and finishing were done by Technicolor. And the tool they used was Luster by Autodesk. It's the same company that makes Flame and Maya. Those are considered like the juggernaut when it comes to 3D modeling and compositing. And it makes sense that they went that route, especially because this movie is so heavy on CGI. That said, it's a lot easier to isolate individual elements in the shot when you have an element and a plate, whereas this is the same environment and isolating our character will be much harder since there are a ton of similar color values spread throughout the frame. And yes, you guessed it right, I have merch now. Go check it out. Hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Subscribe to my channel for more awesomeness. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. I have a huge community there and I post every single day. And guys, if you want to take your color grading game to the next level, make sure to check the link in the description below. 1 hour long free training that takes you from not knowing anything about Resolve all the way to grading your first professional gig. And on that note, let's roll the intro. My whole goal for you guys is to learn ways to do things that are not just applicable to one shot, but to an entire scene and to an entire project. So, and I also want to always show you new ways and new tools in Resolve to get you familiar with everything that we have available in this software. So when you're working on something, you're never limited. You always know your way around how to tackle any sort of situation you're in. So first of all, let's analyze this shot, what is happening and what kind of emotion we feel. So obviously we can see the shot is so dark and desaturated and the life is just sucked out of it. And then we see it even through the emotions of our main talent, what's happening. So all those things are very obvious. And then the color grading is just taking it a step further to sell that idea to us. Now, if we look at the scopes, one thing that I see right away is that there's more red in the shadows than green and blue. Keep that in mind, okay? And we can read that here. There's like a cyan undertone, and that's what creates it at the bottom. So it's almost like they're using offsets to create that. And I'm going to show you by using printer lights, which is something that you guys should get familiar with. Same story, we can read it here. Reds are dominating the shadows, and then blues are dominating the highlights, and then the whites are somewhat balanced. Right here we can see it somewhat right here. Now that we have this in mind, let's build our node tree, and I'm going to take you through it. It's going to be a little bit different, and then we're going to go ahead and start attacking it. So first node is always going to be reserved for noise reduction. Second node is going to be our primaries, and then after that I want to create one more. Then we're going to have our actual look where we're going to create this. And then I'm going to create a layer node. We're going to pull his skin. And it's going to be so hard to pull a proper key that I'm going to have to show you a very unique way to get a cleaner key. And for that, we're going to have to create a new layer node as well. So we're going to be basically selecting, isolating, grabbing the darker brown parts of his skin and then lighter brown. So that's what's going to be happening here to give us a cleaner key. Then I'm going to have our look adjustment. And then after our look adjustment, I'm going to create one more node to adjust our contrast. Then we're going to create a node, and this is going to be up for a debate if I want to add sharpening to this image or not, but I'm going to leave it there for now. And then we're going to have film grain, and obviously we're going to end it with our global adjustment. That's out of the way. Let's start jumping into it. So I'm going to start off with my contrast. So I'm going to dial it in, and I'm actually going to pull up my image, and you guys know how I do it. So split screen, then go right here and select selected still image. And then let's just start going a little bit and see what's happening. For now, I'm going to leave it somewhere around here, because if you see, there's not a lot of contrast happening here. It's just everything is sitting really low. It's almost like a log image with some juice, just because the black points are brought down. Usually, if it's a log image, it might be sitting right here. And if the black points are not right, everything looks gray. But once you adjust the black points, which in his here, you can see everything then seems proper. So for my contrast, I'm going to leave it somewhere around here. And then what I want to do is, I'm not going to touch saturation in this one. I'm going to leave it there. And I just want to adjust this shot a little bit. So I'm going to use my lift gamma gain just to kind of get it in that zone, meaning getting my cyan situation right, like make the reds dominant down here and make the blues dominant up top. So we're just going to do a little bit of it. We're not going to push it too much. Okay. So let's start off with pulling my lift. I'm going to bring it down a little bit, and you can see that our red is peeking through now, just like how it is in the Jungle Book. And then I'm going to raise my blue just a bit. Something like that. And I'm going to bring my gamma up, and I'm doing that just because I want to get a proper key. So I'm going to leave that there and just bring my lift down a little bit more. I just want to live in this. If I can get there a little bit more, it's better. Makes my life easier. So somewhere around here, and then I'm going to just play with my gamma for the skin. Pull it up a little bit, and I think this might be good for the primaries node. And then what I want to do is I want to go in here, and I want to go under my hue versus saturation, and I want to pull my yellow down, and that's going to take the saturation out of the leaves a little bit and kind of balance out my image. And then I'm going to take my greens, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I want to pull that quite a bit, almost like really desaturate that image somewhere like that. And then that's going to make it easier for our look node to get us there faster. And this for our primaries is not bad. This is looking good. Now I'm going to move to my look node, and the best way to get in this world would be by using our offset. So I'm going to go ahead and start right there. So what I need to do is go in this cyan world. And before I get there, you guys remember how the layers mixer work. 5th and 6th have precedent over the 3rd node. So I'm going to go ahead, disable this, disable that. Then I'm going to go back to my 3rd node so I can make changes and see what's happening. And right there. So now we can study what's happening there. I'm looking for that. I'm focusing on just all of this. We're going for that. And let's see. We have to pull some saturation out too. So I'm going to go under saturation and kind of pull that and bring it up a little bit. Take my gamma and bring it down a little bit just to kind of get it in that world where we're trying to go. And then go back to my offset and just keep working at it, keep picking at it until I feel like we're getting somewhere there. And let's not worry about the highlights. We're going to adjust those later. So don't worry about that. I'm just looking for this sort of color to get that in. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to go in here. I'm going to pull my dude out. So we're going to pull a key. And like I said, this one is not going to be easy. So I'm going to start from this area right here and make sure that this is active. And you see what I'm talking about? Like it's basically wants to take everything. So in that case, I want to restrict that. And I want to move that over somewhere around here. Now, as much as I don't like to do this, we're gonna have to window it out because there's just way too much going on. And I'm just giving you an example to still get a successful result. If you're working on a commercial or something like that, 30 to 60 shots, 100 shots, then it's not a huge deal. If you're working on a narrative, I don't recommend this approach. Let's go ahead and give it a nice soft blur. And that's one, okay? And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create a window. And we're just going to keep it close and we're going to soften it out. And go in here in our tracking. Track back first, and then just click right here and track forward. And it's going to be a really simple track, shouldn't be hard. You can already see that the skin is coming through. That's okay. Like the other part of the skin was the highlights. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to click right here. I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to click that part. Basically, everything that wasn't selected before. So I'm just going to select this section and let's try to restrict it a little bit. And then let's give it some blur. And there you go. So just look at it. So we're bringing that information back quite a bit. And now what I want to do is pull up our image. And just if I take these two nodes, you can see what's happening. We pulled them out. Now, one of the biggest rookie mistakes that I see people make all the time is they get so stoked about pulling a great key that they're just like, yes, like that's it, job is done. Like, I don't want to blend it in. Like, this looks great. I killed it. I learned how to pull keys. I'm going to leave it as is. That gives away that you're an amateur. So what you need to do is blend it in. Like this is they're blending it in. Like I said, this is shot on green screen, which means there shouldn't be any cast on him. He should be perfect, pristine, great skin, but they're blending it in into this lifeless environment and still giving it a hint of proper skin tone. So we need to do the same thing. But first, what I want to do is I want to go here. Remember that window that we created? I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to say copy window. I'm going to come here, click on this guy, then say paste window. And if we see right here, and if I go right here, click on window, it's created it. Then I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go under my tracking and I'm going to say copy track data. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say paste track data. Boom. Job is done. You don't have to redo it. It's done it for us. Okay. So let's go here and let's blend in the strength. So it looks pretty good. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to keep it around somewhere around 7-ish. I'm going to go in here, kind of do exactly a similar thing. So before I move on to my look adjustment, I think we can do a little bit more in our background layer right here. I'm going to pull a little bit more saturation out, and then I'm just going to inject a little bit more into it. And then what I want to do is take my offset and just move it a little bit more towards that blue. I want to pull some saturation out of him too. And I'm going to do that by using color boost. Color boost is great for taking some punch out of the skin tone. So even like what we did there is pretty cool. Let me go back into this and All right, I'm just looking at overall, just like kind of picking up a feel, and I think it's not bad. It's somewhat there. So that's good. We're done with this section. Let's move on to look adjustment. And here, I'm just gonna take my offset and move it around a little bit just to see if we can get even closer. Let's make it a bit bigger and then analyze it. It's adding this haze that I like. You see it in this area. For that reason, I might leave it in. And then I'm going to go into my log and just correct my black points. So I want to correct that green that's being casted in his hair. Let's make that bigger. This is looking a bit better. And then what I want to do is just go into my curves and pull it down a little bit. Like, see how hot this image is? I want to just pull the whole thing down. And I can just play around with it and leave it somewhere around here. This is for our contrast. So what we want to do is go in and lift the image up a little bit. So then it just keeps this in this world. And I'm going to take my saturation and dial it up a little bit. And then let me just take my gain and move it toward that cyan. And I'm going to turn it on and off. I'm going to grab my gain and move it around a little bit, see where it fits a bit better. And basically my focus right now is right here, and then obviously the lightest part of the image. And then I want to take my gamma and move it over a little bit. I'm also going to take my gamma and just dial it down, like crush it a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lift and raise it a little bit. Not that much. All right, guys, I'm happy with this. And I'm going to go under my grain and go ahead, select the film grain, put it on 35400T. And I'm going to make it bigger because we can still see our grain. And I'm just going to take the strength and I'm going to crank it. I like a lot of grain. And I think there is grain in that image too. And I can see it and it's looking delicious. And I think we're looking really good. So let's go back, turn all of these off and go one by one and see where we started to where we ended up. So primaries, started with balancing everything and then sucking some colors out of it to make our lives easier in the look nodes. And then we just dialed in that tint to get us in that world. We isolated our skin one step at a time. This was the cleanest way to do it. And it was pretty freaking simple. You saw we did not struggle with our key at all. So that was a pro tip that I would highly recommend you guys use when you have brown on brown and you got to pull your skin. Then we went to our look adjustment and brought everything down, made some changes, desaturated the image a little bit, moved our offset just a tiny bit to get us closer to where we want it to be. Went into my contrast, made some pretty huge adjustments because the way this shot is it has a lot of contrast, and I had to pull the contrast out and then inject contrast where I wanted to kind of get in that ballpark. And then finally we added a lot of grain, and this is what we ended up with. And let's check this out in full screen. All right, now on to our second look. This is going to be very interesting because the way I'm going to build it is going to be without using any keys. That way you can turn this into a look DNA, which can be applied on the entire feature film. And then you're just going to make micro adjustments, which would be balancing your shots. It's a different approach, very popular when it comes to working on feature films. So the first thing, let's analyze the shot and see what we have to work with. And right off the bat, I can tell that this is going to be a lot easier to create because look what we're working with, where we have to get compared to what we had to do in the last grade. If I look at this shot and just read the scopes, pretty balanced. I mean, my reds are just a tiny bit lifted compared to my greens, and then blues are a bit crushed. And we can see it, like blues on the left-hand side are lower than the green and the red channels. But other than that, if you look at the meat, it's pretty well white balanced. And then the whole thing is shifted a little bit toward red and yellow. So more yellow and then a little bit of red, and we can see it in our vector scope. Vector scope is pretty good to tell you a general story of your grade. Even the contrast is like super punchy, which is, you know, also could be the time of day. And that's where we have to get. It's going to be very interesting the way we're going to build this look. So first node is going to be noise reduction. Second is going to be our primaries. And basically I'm just going to do contrast in this. And this node is where I'm going to do my proper balancing. And then this node is going to be our creative LUT node. You know, I am all things against using LUTs, but if there's a time and place for it, I will use it. And I'm going to show you how to properly use LUTs. And after that, I'm going to use one more node, which will be our look adjustment. Then the usual sharpening, grain, global adjustment. Let's go ahead and start naming them. Primaries. This is going to be my balance. This is going to be my creative LUT. This is my RGB curves. The usual sharpen, grain, global adjustment. Now that we got that, let's get going. So I'm going to go in my primaries. I'm going to start with my contrast. So let's pull up the other image. I'm going to start with my contrast, and I'm not going to be shy because we can see that it's pretty contrasty. So let's park it somewhere around here. So that's good for contrast. I'm not going to really make any other changes. What I can do is bring my low range down around 20-ish and then pull my shadow down just to match where everything is sitting over here. And that's about it for this. Now I'm going to go in my balance, and what I want to do here is just try to get some of these colors in place. So I'm going to take my gain and I'm going to move it toward that yellow and raise it up a little bit. And then I'm going to take my gamma and I'm going to move it up toward that yellow-red situation that they got going on. And the thing is that I'm seeing a lot of red because you can see the red is a little bit lifted in our shadows, and I'm trying to do the same thing. So just look, I lifted my red a bit just to kind of match that in the undertones, and it's matching really well. I mean, look at before, look at after. It's matching really, really well. And I mean, we're almost there, right? Like in 2 nodes. And that's what I mean. There's many ways to approach really cool looks without really going overboard and, you know, ripping your hair out. And for the creative LUT, this is what I'm going to show you. So under LUTs, I'm using Impulse makes really nice film emulations. You can also use Film Convert, but I'm just going to go under their Rec 709 generic, which means, you know, your images already have the contrast and proper balance and everything is ready to go. You just want to apply a look on top of it. And the one that I'm using is one of the 3 really popular looks, which is the Kodak Vision 3. And this one is 5207. So that's the one I'm going to use. And when I drop it in, just look what happens. Boom. Like, just look at it. We're done. Like, look at this color that we have in the leaves. I'm going to move this down for a second. Like, just look at that. Like, before, this green was too rich to match it to that. And like, see how there's a yellow brown undertone on the leaves here. And boom, this gets us there. Now we're just going to have to balance a little bit. I think it might take us a bit too far. So we're going to push back a little bit. But other than that, I think this has done a freaking phenomenal job. So I'm going to stay in this node. And what I'm going to do is just take my lift and bring it down just a little bit. So I'm just trying to match it. I'm trying to see what's happening here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my log, and because I see that it lifted everything, you can even see it here. Like, look at where in the Jungle Book, everything is sitting right here, touching the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in my RGB curves, and I'm going to do a couple of things. First thing, I'm going to just bring my shadows down to match our reference look. So I'm going to go under my log. I'm going to go down, bring my range down to around 19-ish. And then I'm just going to bring this down to get in that ballpark. And I'm just going to see how crazy it's getting, right? Like, if it's just too much, then I'm going to bring it up a little bit. This is looking pretty good because I'm like seeing this to that, and it's looking really, really good. Rest of the scene, I mean, honestly, I can park it here and that should be good. If I pull some warmth out of here, we will be in the ballpark. But if you actually see right here in the back, this warmth might not be bad. It's almost there. It's almost like we have to pull some red out of it and keep this yellow in. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So I'm going to go break this chain so then I can individually affect my color channels and my curves. And I'm going to take this blue and minus it. So I'm going to add some yellow and just look at to the left what's happening. I'm not going to go too far. I'm going to park it somewhere around here and just look at how it's warming up everything. And that's looking very nice. And I feel like we might be stylizing it just a tad bit more than what's going on here. So let's keep those things in mind too. And I think to take care of that, I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I'm going to go back in my balance. And what I want to do is I want to take my mid-tone, my gamma, and raise it up a little bit. I want to see more. Like, I can see a bit more there. So I want to do that here as well. And let me see that. Okay, so that's already looking better. Now I'm going to take my gamma and I'm going to pull some of the red out, okay? So I'm going to just pull it down a little bit. I want to just take it easy a little bit. So even just something like that. And we just pull the sting out a little bit. All right, that's not bad at all. All right, this looks really, really good. One thing that I do want to try is pull some saturation out just a little bit. All right, I'm going to put some saturation back in. And then in my RGB curves, I'm going to do one more thing, okay? I'm going to go under hue versus hue. I'm going to grab my green and I'm going to turn it into yellow. So just look what's happening. Like, I'm going to raise it up a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing with my yellow. I'm going to just move it up a little bit just to burn it a bit more. really just trying to get in this world. Like, look at all this. I think we've done it. We're there. Now I'm going to do a extra credit little thing that I'm going to show you, which I'm sure you guys are going to love. So I'm going to go in here. What did I just do in here? This is where I've done saturation. This was supposed to be my sharpening. So I'm going to cancel that. Let me see if I even need to do that. I think we can leave it saturated for now. I'm going to create another node and just watch what I'm going to do now. Okay, you guys are going to love this. And that's, like I said, extra credit. I'm going to add God rays or light rays, and I'm going to go in here. I'm going to change it to add an angle, and then I'm going to flip that angle to right here. And then I'm going to mess with the source threshold because I really want it to just focus like the brightest points. So I'm going to focus it right here. I'm going to increase the length. I want it to be like a light shaft. And then I'm going to brighten it so we can actually see it. And I'm going to soften it a little bit. And then go back and just make it a bit more visible. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give it some color. Something like that. And like it looks so nice, right? But let's just control it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is a couple of things. The simplest trick is this. I'm going to go in here, window. I'm going to go to my gradient. I'm going to put it on that top right corner. And then I'm going to pull it. And I'm just going to see what it's affecting. And this is all I want to affect in the image. I just want it to be this much. Basically, the light is just hitting him ever so slightly. And let's make it a bit more obvious. So I'm going to go back and see what I can do and add more softness to it. Brightness is good. Do I have to add more length or less length? This is good. All right. And then what I can do is just bring the entire thing down. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to, first of all, take my blue channel, bring it down a little bit to just even add more warmth. Then I'm going to take my red channel and add just a little bit of red. And now I'm going to take my intensity and just bring it down a notch. And now if we open this image up next to it, just look at this morning light coming in. How nice that is. And that definitely takes it to the next level compared to what's happening here. But why the hell not? Let's take something that inspires us and take it to the freaking next level. So I like it. And if you want to control it, you can control it. All the controls are right here. You know, you can just bring the brightness back a little bit. You can do whatever. I like it pretty in your face so we can actually see what it's doing. And I think it's not fake. I think I buy it. And again, you can control the intensity of it, like how much or how little you want it. Like I can add more red or I can move back on that and keep it pretty neutral. And I think it looks really freaking sweet. And then at that point, I'm going to go in here, add some sharpness, keep it at 47. I'm going to go into my grain, bring my film grain in, take it to about 35400T. Let's make this, pull this over. I'm going to go under strength and raise it until I see it. And then let's go in here and create our noise reduction. So keep it around 4.8-ish. Break this chain, just grab our chroma and bring it up to 6.8-ish. And now if I make it full screen, I mean, this is pretty sweet. And once again, like I said, I mean, this is like right here. If you want to kill it, then we're there. We're done. But if you just want to take it to the next level, you can leave it on. I'm going to leave it on. And let's kill all of these and go one by one and see where we started, where we ended up. Primaries, just did our contrast. Then we went into our balance, balanced everything out, dropped a creative LUT. And this film LUT really, really did most of the heavy lifting and put us in the ballpark. Then we adjusted it a little bit, pulled some red out of it, and then I went into my RGB and really dialed all the colors in and did a lot of hue versus hue to get the right leaves color in there. And then if we wanted to just end it there, we could have just like added sharpening, grain, and call it a day. But I wanted to take it a step further. So I went in and I created this light shaft. And I think it just brings everything together. Let's look at it in full screen. I hope you guys had a blast and got to see the real power of color grading. Make sure to drop a comment below. Let me know which look should I recreate next. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more awesomeness. Please share this with friends. And guys, check out the link in the description if you want to take your color grading game to the next level. And remember, work hard, get obsessed, get possessed. I will see you guys in the next video.